If you are a treasurer looking to understand more about the Treasury Management System and how it can help you and how the onboarding process happens, today with my guest, we're going to discuss all of this. This is Muhammad Kurtam and this is the Mia Treasures podcast. Mustafa, great to have you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Muhammad, for
Thank
having
you.
me.
So let's start quickly. How long you been with Kyriba? A brief intro about your
Sure.
career with Kyriba, your path.
I joined Kyriba at a very tough time for everyone, the days of COVID. Uh, Obviously, today I am leading an organization that is growing very fast, where my role encompasses customer success, account management, growth channels and alliances, as well as the operations for Kyriba in the CEMEA region, which is Central Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
So you joined in COVID.
Yes.
So that was in 2020. So almost 5 years now.
Exactly. So I joined just at January 2021. So at that time, all the companies may have been downsizing, may have been shrinking, and it was a very big turmoil for most of the companies because they could not have access to their cash. They needed to be physically present at the banks or need to have people attending the offices to sign off some payments or to have access to their bank portals and so on. While the customers that had Kyriba were able to do that from anywhere and from their mobile device, they could initiate the payments, approve them, and get full visibility towards their liquidity and cash performance.
It's very interesting how Kyriba can help. We will dig into that in our discussion. But I just want to understand. So you've been with Kyriba almost 4 to 5 years now. And what's your current role at the moment?
So I lead what we're calling it now is the growth organization. So from the moment that a customer signs with Kyriba, we do not just say thank you for your
the
contract
business.
and we leave away. So we are monitoring the implementation with the Kyriba partners. So we follow a partner implementation model. Where Kyriba partners would work with the customers to identify how they are doing their business today, how they would want it to be, and how that the digital transformation from manual or disparate systems will be in a centralized automation with the banks. This along with making sure that the customers are aware of what is the latest in Kyriba, because Kyriba is reinvesting a lot into research and design, and we are going to talk about that later, towards improving the platform and continuously doing that for all of our corporate and bank customers.
That's perfect. I mean, let's first start from the beginning. Okay, what are the challenges that the market is facing that you think the Treasury Management System, not just Kyriba, I mean, we'll discuss specifically what Kyriba does versus other TMS, but let's go with the challenges. So the treasurers who's listening to this understands, okay, these are the challenges that I'm facing or might face or might be facing that the TMS will support me. Some of the things I can think of is managing payments instead of having multiple e-banking solutions with several banks. You have one platform that does that for you. One thing is other thing is the liquidity management and the cash position visibility. So give me a bit of insight on what challenges are there in the market, and then we can discuss how Kyriba and how TMS can support the treasurers on that.
Sure. And the Treasury Management System started out mostly for visibility and being able to make payments. So seeing your cash as well as moving it around. With the development of TMS, it's now more of a liquidity performance platform. So what we're adding to that is the ability to track your debt, your foreign FX exposures, your commodities, your interest rates. Do you want to do hedging? All of this is now becoming as a protection of your investment and of your liquidity. Furthermore, we have introduced the working capital, which is optimizing your liquidity. So treasurers today would be able to optimize their cash, generate revenue or rebates that would help them transform them from a cost center to a revenue generating center. This was when we started 4 years ago with the advancement of the technology. So we have now a full analytics suite. So the CFO, the treasurer can now analyze the performance over the past few years. How do they improve? How do we make it better? Is their forecast accurate? How they improve their forecast? All of this now with what we call cash AI, which was traditionally machine learning.
Mm.
And this is based on the existing data models, the existing data trends. It is learning on the from the data that is available. Just last month, we announced the release of the Kyriba Agentic AI, which is Thai. This will help also transform completely the way that the treasurers work today. So it will not only be part of their day-to-day interactions. You can just ask a question, generate a report for me, similar as what we are doing with ChatGPT these days, or similar. But the difference is that number one, this is completely secure. We're not using any public information, or your data is fully secured. This was the primary control that is put in place by Kyriba as a treasury management provider, because we should be as secure as a bank. All the data is financial data, so it should be only seen by you. And this is the differentiation that Kyriba brings to the table. So all within your own environment.
Okay. So basically, I think what now you're focusing on is on the AI automation of building liquidity and forecast. And what you're trying to say is here that you are basing, or basically the client is basing the forecast based on their in-house data,
Mm-hmm.
which with the Kyriba system, it's very secure. It's there is no breach, and this is the top priority that you
Mm-hmm.
have on that. But let's step back a little bit. So this is the front of the AI when it comes to forecasting and liquidity,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Let's take it a step further for the people who maybe haven't been exposed to TMS before
Mm-hmm.
and want to know, okay, what's the basics of the TMS?
Sure.
What's the main pros of having a TMS versus just using the normal e-banking systems
Mm-hmm.
and using the normal consolidation tools like Excel sheets,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Maybe we can touch on that using payments for them.
This is a very valid question. So, in the beginning, customers would have their ERP systems. When they needed to go and uh, make the payments to the banks, they needed to log into the bank portal, upload a file, or make individual payments. The approvers each have to go into the bank portal and approve their payments accordingly. And then when they needed to see the cash, they needed to log in into every account and download every statement individually, log it into their ERP, manually enter the data from the statement, and thus you have visibility in the ERP. So where Kyriba lies, it lies between the ERPs from one side and the banks from another side. So Kyriba as a platform, bank connectivity as a service becomes the norm, right? So Kyriba can connect to banks via the Swift network. It can connect via host-to-host connectivity, or it can connect today with the development of APIs, direct connection to those banks,
Mm.
where you can even have live balances. You can have automatic statement collection, as well as real-time payments. So this is where we are heading today from the bank perspective. Similarly, from the ERP perspective, Kyriba as well has developed APIs to those ERPs, meaning that the connectivity will more or less become seamless in terms of security, protection, and availability of the data. So the treasurer has a solution for himself, where he can have full visibility of all his bank accounts across different regions, across multiple companies. They can view this data and information in many formats. They can view their cash flows for days to come, and they can do this on 3 days, 12 to 13 week forecast, or even with the liquidity planning solution of Kyriba, even extend that even up to 5 years.
Mm.
So
No,
it's becoming just not forecasting, but also planning.
100%. And I really felt that in my job because I used to work for a company that did not have a TMS.
Mhm.
And what we used to do is we used to extract each and every bank statement from their online banking. And the trick here is that you have a different format for each one.
Yes.
And it's very hard to consolidate. While on the TMS, when I moved to another company that uses TMS, you don't need to go through this hassle because
Yes.
what the TMS does is just it takes the format, whatever
Mhm.
format, and usually it's MT940, and we're
Yes.
going to discuss now if it's something else.
Yes.
But usually they take the MT940, which is a Swift that's coming from the bank, and then you have basically one platform that you can see all your statements, all your banks, all your cash position, which is the number one job that any treasurer has on their daily work. Like first thing that you need to do every day is to have a visibility of your cash position. What's coming in, what's coming out, what's my cash position, how am I going to finance my payments for the short-term liquidity. So this is, I think it's a key thing when it comes to TMS. It's the basic need that we have for the TMS. So it's 100%, and I feel it in my work. But maybe let's, if you know how the Kyriba helps or the TMS
Mhm.
in general helps, if some of the banks, because we face this
Mhm.
in a lot of countries, in a
Mhm.
lot of banks with the countries in
Yes.
Africa, some of the banks they lack the sophistication to send the MT940.
Mhm.
Sometimes the statements are a different format. Does TMS or Kyriba support in helping in transforming these different sorts or different types of formats of statements?
So, from a Kyriba perspective, we are open to discussing with any bank the way that they want to communicate with us. So, as you mentioned, Africa is one area where the banks are not ready with standard formats. Kyriba has offered across different banks to work with the banks if they are open to sharing statements or accepting payments from a third party provider, no matter where it is. So if the door or the window is open, we're happy to discuss, okay, what are the formats that need to be developed? Kyriba maintains 50,000 plus payment formats in its repository, and it becomes available for every customer of Kyriba globally. So we don't have to redevelop those
Mm.
formats for every customer. We just use the formats and we create the payment scenarios that we call them. So it could be a treasury payment, it could be a supplier payment, it could be a payroll. So each one has a different format, as you
Mhm.
mentioned before. And these are all saved and stored and maintained by Kyriba for on behalf of all of our corporate customers globally. Uh, Going back to Africa, we're just working, for example, now with Investec that has invested with Kyriba, for example, to build a Kyriba API.
Okay, it's
So,
interesting.
along with many of the global banks that work with Kyriba, Investec, for example, has invested to build a payment connector where customers who have Kyriba can connect to the bank directly for reporting as well as for
Regardless
payments.
of the format of the bank.
It is the Investec Bank. So all of the Kyriba customers can just subscribe to the Investec Bank connector, and they can connect to the bank directly without needing to go via Swift or via host to host or via any other medium.
Ah,
So it's a
okay.
direct connection to the bank with a secure API connection in
And do you
place.
see this rolling out to several banks?
And this is already available for 30 global banks.
Okay.
This is available on the Kyriba API platform. So this platform, it's a marketplace where Kyriba is developing its own APIs that can be useful for its own customers, but also it is open for third parties to come and develop access data from Kyriba and remodel that into their own API. So today, as you know, banks are no longer the only players in the market.
Mm.
We have crypto providers, we have money market funds that want to provide their data to Kyriba customers. You have, for example, payment service providers that are also creating their own APIs on the Kyriba platform. So it's providing the corporates multiple options to make payments or to visualize their investments or their exposures to cryptocurrency, for example. I know this is dear to your heart, and it's becoming maybe a discussion that
Yeah, it's
treasurers
definitely a
would be
trend.
having. I'm sure we'll have more experts than I am in cryptocurrency. But yes, the world is growing, the ecosystem is growing. So today we don't have just partners for implementation, we have partners for technology, and we have the banking partners.
Mm.
So it's all becoming a very big ecosystem that is coming together, of course, along with our corporate
No, it's
customers.
interesting because the TMS and Kyriba in particular has grown
Mm-hmm.
exponentially, so that not just the treasurers and clients are interested to be onboarded, but also, as you rightly said, the FSPs, the financial service providers as well, are
Yes,
interested to be Kyriba friendly or TMS friendly,
yes,
so they can cater to their customers. So it's very, very interesting. And because, as you rightly mentioned, and as we discussed, having the visibility of your liquidity management and cash position, and not just being able to view the statement in one place,
mm-hmm.
but also to use one place to do the payments using the
Exactly.
MT101 and different
Mm-hmm.
Swift. This is something that's really has made life easy for treasury. Again, I have witnessed both. I have both worked in companies where when you need to do payments, you need to log into different banking platforms and and it's different procedure and have all these tokens and you
Yes,
forget the token or you forget the password for the token, while you have, if you have Kyriba or a TMS, it's just one user, one password. You go in, you do the
indeed.
payments for, regardless how many banks you have, even if you have 10 banks, if they are
Yes,
all on Kyriba, you don't need 10 tokens. You just need one username, one password, go in there and just do it.
indeed. And Kiriba today has processed more than $15 trillion through its platform for our corporate customers globally, as well as our banking customers. So it is, we are as secure as a bank. We are, as you mentioned, it's a single sign-on. You log in with your own corporate username and password. You have multi-factor authentication, and uh, with Swift, today Swift also is changing its formats from the MT format to the CAMT format. So this also becomes a challenge for most of the corporates that are doing a direct connection from their ERP to the bank. So they have to go back and change each and every uh, code that they've written to make that happen. With Kyriba, this transition is more or less easier. I wouldn't say it's frictionless, but it is much easier because there is no code and the formats get maintained by Kyriba. So in all cases, we have to maintain those formats. We just need to switch some need to make sure that the mapping rules are in place and you're good to go. So this is the another advantage of having Kiriba, as well as a total cost of ownership. It should be more or less cheaper than having a point to point to every bank.
It's very interesting. One more interesting thing we were discussing before we started, and you told me how Kyriba was expanding during the COVID period.
Indeed.
Yes, versus other companies. So tell me more about this. I want to go into how Kyriba during the COVID period helped clients and how it was expanding versus the expectation during a tough period like COVID.
Indeed, I can tell you, since I joined in January 2021, we have had exponential growth. And one of the main reasons was that the companies that were working with us during the time of COVID, their work was not affected. They could visualize their cash flows. We even had some reports that were generated for some companies that are called days of survival uh, analytics. So if today I lose all my revenue, how many days can I survive? And this becomes like a KPI for some of the customers that we are working with. And they can, from this analytics platform, access full visibility. They can do what if scenarios. What happens if I make this acquisition? What happens if my revenue drops to half? What happens if my expenses are exceeded? And this is where Kiriba helped the customers during that period. And they recognized that as a differentiator and made them more competitive in the market versus customers who could not see the liquidity. And being able to seeing and moving your cash was
Mm.
king at the time. And this is why Kyriba became in demand immediately after. And we've seen a very big transformation in the region with many of the major companies across SEMIA uh, adopt Kyriba, uh, if not Kyriba, other treasury management systems, but Kyriba in particular, due to the regional presence that we're having, the growth that we are having, the local availability of the resources, and the differentiation as well is that we're as a software as a service, we can deliver to you from anywhere. And this made it very easy for corporates to access Kyriba, use Kyriba, and implement Kyriba with partners distributed across multiple territories. The industries that we're working with are in real estate, construction, aviation, oil and gas, power, government. So it is every
Diversified.
domain you can imagine. We're working with them for their own requirements for treasury. It becomes more challenging, as you said. I have banks in the Middle East. I have banks in Africa. I'm working with banks in Europe, in the US, in Latam. You know, our customers might be based here,
Mm.
but they're operating globally.
100%. And one thing that we want to touch upon is we want to tackle the idea that people might think the treasury management system or Kyriba are just for cash position and visibility and being able to process payments through one platform. And what you have just mentioned, what you were able to provide during COVID for customers, their scenario analysis in case revenue drops, how will this affect their acquisitions, how will this
Indeed.
affect their cash position. So it's not just about visibility of cash position and doing payments and having one platform. So let's speak more about the other capabilities
Mm,
and where are you seeing this growth in
mm,
Kyriba in particular, and the inclusion of AI as well to cater for these other options or other solutions aside
yeah.
just from the cash position and the visibility of cash.
The role of treasurers is transforming. You see now more treasurers either becoming CFOs, or we have treasury as part of the board. So we have chief treasury officer now as part of the board. And this liquidity is becoming very important towards any decision making within a company. So if I want to make an acquisition, how quickly can I make an analysis of my workflow? Let's say, what if I acquire a company at 100 million capital? From where can I source this money? What are the facilities that I have? Where do I have them? Where can I get the best rates? And so on. And once we do, what will the cash flow look like after this acquisition for a 1 year period, 2 year period, 3 year period? And then you can do your ROI and analysis with the liquidity as well. So this is something that out of the Kyriba platform you can simply do. You can create, this is the best case scenario, worst case scenario, all of this in a matter of minutes.
Uh,
Let's say today something changes, you change the parameters in Kyriba, and then Kyriba can project with AI the possibility of what will happen in the future. So this is one way that we are seeing treasurers doing this. As I mentioned before, there is your exposures, counterparties you might know. We couple of years ago, we heard of a very big US bank that has had some issues. So corporates could not access their funds. So today, corporates can see who are their counterparties, what is their exposure, what are the credits that are available, and this is where they can diversify and spread the counterparty exposure across multiple regions, multiple banks, and multiple entities.
and this is because Kariba has access to these credit, like ver- is-
Uh,
credit levels or credit classifications, or per
Up
se.
to a certain extent, I wouldn't say this needs to be manually entered. However, this can be based on your existing liquidity profile from within Kiriba. You are able to see where your exposures are at,
Hmm.
and you can check the risk and analyze it and see if there is any counterparty that you might be exposed to more than another.
Okay. And I know you're partnering with Reuters, which is now Workspace.
So Refinitiv.
Refinitiv,
Yeah.
yes.
So
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 you get some of the data, market data that is readily available that you
mhm.
can view over Kyriba.
So today, Kyriba has an end product market data solution where we provide our customers with market data. Today, the source is Refinitiv, but that could change. So it is a Kyriba built-in market data source that would allow you to analyze, have all your IBOR rates, your FX exchange rates, spots, forwards, everything available from within the platform. However, we are also flexible to incorporate third-party market data rates if the customer is looking towards different options, as well as manually upload data rates if possible. So we're very flexible in that regard.
Okay, let's speak about, because I understand, let's say, for example, the solution of the liquidity and have the visibility of the
Mm.
liquidity, etc. This is one module. So when we, because we're going to go through this, we want to go through the onboarding process and
Mhm.
how, if we want to start onboarding,
Yes.
what are the steps. But before we go into the onboarding process, walk me quickly through the modules, different modules that we have on Kyriba. Um, yeah, I know it might
It's
be a lot, but
it's
the
good.
main ones, the
All
ones
right.
that are mostly used.
All right. So I'll go back to what I mentioned earlier. So within cash, we had the first pillar. We have four main pillars:
Mm.
cash management, payments, risk, and working capital. So these are the four main solution pillars for Kyriba. And under each one, of course, we have many sub modules. Kyriba is a highly modular solution. We have a la carte and we have as well bundled solutions. So if you want to have a package that is cost effective to you, you can go for the bundled price. If you're just looking for, I just want a very simplistic cash management and payment solution, that is also a possibility. Let's start with cash. This is basically where we treasurers they see where their liquidity is at. So this allows them access to their cash management and forecasting. Another very important feature is the in-house banking and cash pooling. This allows, of course, both tracking your notional pooling or actual pooling, and you can define the rules in there. You can also have bank account management, who are my signatories for every bank account. What are their limits? Are they staying in the company? Did they leave the company? Do I need to do any KYC control on that? So all of these become part of the reporting and the standard cash management solution. We have many other modules, but one that I highlight today is becoming the cherry on the top for Kyriba, which is the liquidity planning. So the liquidity planning takes into consideration all of your instruments for your debt, for your investment, your working capital, your cash, everything into a single module. And it's incorporating it in a way that is very flexible for a treasurer. So it can just be Excel like. As you
Mm.
said, the treasurers today, they love Excel. And this is, I think, second nature to many of them. And they can just plug in the numbers on the screen towards justifying, okay, what if this changes? Instead of this month I get 100 million, I get 80 million, what will happen to my workflow in that case? And here, this is where you define your best case, worst case, and the plan that you ultimately decide to move with. And you can compare it with the actuals once the actuals are in place. It also takes consideration holding structures, sub entities, so you can do this on multiple levels. And let's say one entity did not submit their forecast. I can just ask AI, create for me based on the historical data a forecast for this entity that has not yet submitted its forecast, so that I can submit to the board, for example, or to the CFO the forecast, even if I don't have the full data available for me. So the flexibility, this is where we're looking to help treasurers reduce their time to get results. And this is why liquidity planning is becoming such a key for Kyriba as part of
So we mentioned
its
four pillars
Yeah.
again. The cash management. Okay. And
So the next one will be the payments,
so first, cash management,
payments,
payments,
risk management,
risk management, and the liquidity planning
and working capital.
and working capital.
Yeah. So liquidity planning is under the cash management pillar still.
Okay. Um, and for the risk, maybe we can go quickly through.
Yeah, payments, obviously, just very quickly, it allows you to do your supplier, treasury, payroll payments all from a single place with all the security that is adherent to any major bank. Similarly, fully compliant with SWIFT protocols. So we have regular checks in that. In addition to this, uh, something that is very important is fraud detection under the payments. So we had customers, maybe even during the COVID days, that have had many fraud attempts. Companies sending them letters that look legit, that we have changed our account from A to B, and so on, and companies that were following manual processes fell to the scam. And this is where Kyriba can prevent such things with many different controls that are rule-based controls, but also anomaly detection with AI that we have already in place. In addition to sanction list screening, obtaining your sanction list globally, confirming that any entity that you are paying is not on any global sanction list, and recently bank account validation as well. So validating that this account belongs to the person or the entity that we are working with. So all of these may be put in place for you as part of the Kyriba payments platform.
That's very interesting. To have the ability to have all of this in one place, doing the payments, and then before you do the payments, you are sure that it's ring fenced from a risk perspective,
Exactly.
that the account is validated, the receiver or the customer or the supplier, sorry, is not sanctioned in any way. The payment is not fishy. It's very, very interesting. Okay, maybe I'm intrigued. Maybe let's start onboarding. Tell me, what's the process? Let's go maybe step by step. Day one. This is day one. I reached out to Mustafa. Mustafa, you know what? Let's do that. Let's start the onboarding process. What are the requirements in terms of manpower, systems? What should I expect in terms of timeline for the onboarding?
There are many different parameters that are involved. Obviously, how many modules that are being implemented. The key considerations for us is the number of banks that you are onboarding and what is the connectivity model that is in place. So most of the companies, once you exceed 5 banks, let's say 3 to 5 banks, then you might want to go towards a solution like Swift that would allow you access to all the different banks through a single BIC address. So all the banks would simply send all their statements to this BIC address as well as accept payments from that BIC address. This is usually the norm for most of our projects. And this is a process. So there's a Swift onboarding process that would require anywhere between 1 week to 2 to 3 months, depending on how agile the corporate is to provide the data and the KYC for the Swift onboarding. Once that is done, uh, the project payments testing and the statements can commence. And this is usually uh, one risk factor that every treasurer should consider. What we are doing to mitigate this is that sometimes you are starting this process before signing contract with Kyriba. So making sure that the treasury team has all the documents, all the KYC, all the information, the score letter that is needed from a bank already before we even sign a contract. And this will help us reduce the time to go live, time to value.
Okay. And in terms of manpower from my end as a client and from your end as well, let's say, yeah, we have 5 banks. Uh, for the term in terms of requirements, and is there any initial requirements in terms of systems as well from my end to be able to start this?
In terms of systems, Kyriba connects to the ERPs. So there will be some synchronization to be done with the corporate IT. Most of the projects that we have, it is a minimal interaction. If there is API involved, the IT team needs to be included more towards setting up the APIs within the ERP. These are packaged APIs for the global standard ERPs, and this is something that the IT team needs to perform. However, generally, it's very low reliance on the IT teams, with the treasurer being the subject matter expert, along with maybe two to three, depending on the nature of the corporate that we are working with, who would be able to identify what the workflows will be in Kyriba and how that will connect to the different banks. So you will need the ERP integration from one side, the blueprinting design from another aspect. This will require the treasury team to be involved. And thirdly, the relationship with the banks, because the corporates, they hold the relationship with the banks. So they need to introduce the Kyriba partner to the bank, agree on the details, how many bank accounts, what is the format that you are following, just to make sure that the mapping is correct, and making sure that the workflows that are put in place are being tested properly before going live. So these are the critical components. This can vary from as a full implementation process from 3 months up to 1 year. We've had corporates with many different entities rolling out with 60, 70 people on a call. And we have projects where we have one person from the corporate side. So again, it depends on the scale and the size of the project, how many banks are being onboarded. And this can all be done in parallel, but it needs to be managed properly. Some cases, a customer may need a project manager to manage the project from their side if there are many different stakeholders involved. And what we help with is we help build a business case with the customer or with the treasurer towards what is the ROI in terms of implementing Kyriba, what are the risk threat analysis if they do not implement Kyriba, and what is the opportunity value for implementing Kyriba.
This is very important because sometimes it's very tricky for a treasurer to try and quantify the importance of having TMS to the CFO or the top management or CEO. So you providing this risk assessment and ROI,
Yes.
it would be really helpful. So in what form is it in? Do you provide it in terms of analysis versus how do you do this, the case scenario of this is your position now and this is how things are going to improve? So maybe if you can shed some light on that.
Sure. We have a global team of value engineering consultants that works closely with the corporates. We have a discussion with them on their business, their operations. Obviously we need to collect data towards what is the time that you do for these activities. How do you do them today? Is it manual? Is it automated? So we analyze the corporate profile. We benchmark them against their peers in the industry or by size or by region, and we provide a full analysis report. We are automating this to become available through our portal as well. So let's say today you don't want to have an face-to-face exercise. This will also be available for treasury managers to go into the Kyriba portal, enter their numbers, and then they can get the business case and risks, threats that are identified, as well as the ROI for implementing a treasury solution based on their needs and requirements.
It's very interesting. It's just very important to mention that for who doesn't know, the Kyriba system is a cloud based, so you don't need to download any app or don't need to do anything in terms of having an application or IT setup when it comes to the application. So just wanted to mention that for and you can confirm on that.
Yes. So Kyriba is fully software as a service. Uh, we have the full security backing of the AWS cloud. And we are compliant with most of the compliance rules, as you might know, GDPR in Europe and similar other standards globally. So, from that perspective, we are being trusted by government, semi government entities uh, globally. Something that we have announced last year is we're going to even have a Saudi data center this year. It is already under implementation and it will be ready before the end of the year. And this is something that as well brings the confidence in Kyriba in the region that we are investing and having our own setup in the region to also have the data governance, data compliance when in terms of when it comes to data residency for some of the regional governments as well.
One more thing I want to mention as we're closing on the uh, onboarding process. You do have partners that can come in and help the team and give them training on how to use
Mhm.
Kariba, how to do the implementation and do the admin side, right?
Indeed. And this is where Kiriba as well, for me, it's a big differentiator. Kiriba does not need to maintain a set of consultants to be ready for every customer because we're undergoing tens, if not hundreds, of projects globally. And it becomes very hard to maintain the talent. So what Kiriba has done is that we have opened the ability to implement Kiriba, similar to many different global software providers, to go and certify their consultants in Kiriba Elevate, previously known as Kiriba Academy. So it is the uh, Elevate platform allows third-party companies to become partners of Kyriba, certify their consultants, and implement Kyriba for their corporates. This way, every corporate has a option. I want today to work with a partner. I'm not happy with this partner. I can work with another partner, or I can have a tender RFP when I need to compare prices if I am price conscious, or I want to make sure that the entity that is implementing is not the same entity that is also auditing. So there are many different options that are available. This is from the partner side. However, as well, the Elevate platform would allow the customers to become certified Kiriba users.
Mm.
And the Kiriba users will be able to get a certification that I am a certified Kiriba user for payments, certified Kiriba users for cash, and so on.
So if you're a corporate starting to have TMS or Kariba, you have one of two options. Either you can go for third parties who are certified
Mhm,
Kariba users and have them basically work for you in the implementation
mhm.
process and advise you, etc. Or you can have your own team within the corporate who come to the Kariba Elevate and be certified Kariba users, and then they would be the ones managing the process
Mhm.
for the implementation and admin.
So let me take so they can be so when they are a certified Kiriba user, it means that they are certified by Kiriba as a user of Kiriba. And if they want to become a consultant, they can.
Mm.
And this is up to the jurisdiction of every company. So we might have companies that are connecting to 100 banks per year, for example. It becomes very hard to have a third party come and deliver that. If they're having constant requirements for professional services, it might be a good idea to certify their team as consultants, not as users. So that is also a possibility with Kiriba.
That's very interesting. I think the last thing, maybe if you want to add, when we're selecting
Mhm.
TMS for the corporate, why should we go with Kariba? Last points.
As I mentioned, Kiriba today has all the components of a liquidity platform. So everything is integrated in one place. We even the previous acquisitions that have been made into Kiriba, everything is provided from a single platform. We're not connecting many systems together to generate what you are trying to do. This provides it a very big distinction from other solutions that are in the marketplace today. In addition, the investment that Kiriba is doing today into research and design for the same platform is all concentrated on this platform for corporates. This allows us investments in APIs, investments in new modules like liquidity planning, as I mentioned, investments in analytics, and as well tie as well our latest release in AI. So this is where Kyriba is heading. We're constantly investing and moving forward towards helping treasurers achieve what they're looking to achieve in a much shorter time and in a very centralized way.
Mustafa, thanks a lot for having the time for me. I really, really appreciate your time. Really, really appreciate you being here. Before you go, I have one last thing for you. I brought you this gift. This was a recommendation from, please open it.
Thank you.
Recommendation from our last guest.
Never split the difference.
Yes, I hope you enjoy.
Negotiating is as if your life depended on it.
Yes.
I agree. We focus on value, and this is maybe where the Kyriba discussion can start.
Interesting. Love it. Thank you. Thanks a
Thank
lot,
you,
Mustafa.
Muhammad. Thank
Pleasure
you
to
very
have
much
bro.
for having me.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.